All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another amazing episode of EdUp Career Schools, The Scoop, with your host, Kathy Belletti. Today is going to be a very special episode because my training company, Motivate with K.A.T, has now partnered with Meratas, which is a company that provides additional resources for our students when it comes to financing. So, what happens when you finally pair admissions and finance together? We get so many more students through the process so they can start the training for the careers that they deserve and get out there in the workforce and start doing what they've always imagined. So today I have with me the owner, Mr. Darius Goldman, and he's going to talk to you about Meratas, how it works, what types of schools he actually works with, and how we can better serve our students. So welcome, Darius. How are you today?
Doing great, Kathy. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Absolutely. So, Darius, talk to us about your journey. What inspired you to start Meritas and what made you focus on higher education specifically?
Good question. And it's one I have the time to think about often. It goes back to when I was 18. I'm sitting in my kitchen and my father, a Air Force psychiatrist, sits me down for one of my famous talks. And this is a lecture that I think I'm going to get like every other lecture. But he sits me down and he says, "Son, you're 18 and I have something to share with you." And what he was about to share with me literally did put me on my path and change my world perspective. He said, "I don't have a business to give you. So I'm going to give you an education. And what you do with that is up to you." Very noble thing for a father to say to a son. And something back then, I didn't appreciate the gravity of it,
Mm-hmm.
that he was going to help me pay for schooling. And then I was on my own, right? He would give me those tools. With that gift that he gave me, I actually pursued law. What I loved about law was that it's a backstage pass. You learn how our society works. You learn how our democracy works. Learn how capitalism works with law.
Mm-hmm.
I practiced law for a decade plus, and then towards the tail end of my career, I was running a practice group in New York City where we were helping investment funds purchase bundles of student loan portfolios. That's what that was my first exposure to student loans. And I learned a couple of instrumental things that put me into creating Meratas. One was schools had no idea what their students looked like. And
Still.
and the lenders didn't really want to even hold the notes. They would
Wow.
issue the notes and then sell them off to someone else. And I thought there must be a better way. And that was the original inspiration behind creating Meritas, to this audacious goal of empowering schools to underwrite and admit their own students based on merit rather than lenders doing it based on credit.
Meritas.
Meritas, there you
There
go.
you go. That is awesome. So, talk to us about what is Meritas and what do you do? How do you actually help students?
Sure. So we're two things. I like to say we're a tuition solution platform, and we
Mm-hmm.
do that in two ways. The first one is the original product that we created, which are flexible payment plans. A lot of times, and this goes back to the law firm, what we learned was schools rely entirely on outside vendors to manage that credit decision of who gets to take the course. And we felt that was inherently wrong. So we created tools that would empower a school to underwrite their own students holistically, based on credit factors, sure, but also based on background, interests, education, etc., and try and enroll school students using a more holistic approach to underwriting and flexible payment plans, coming up with a payment program that works for the school and the student. So that was our first product, flexible payment plans. And then schools told us what they really needed was, this is great, but we also rely on cash and budgets, and we have operating costs, and we need to keep the lights on.
Mm-hmm.
So Meritas, we're not a lender, and I have no desire to become a lender. So we created a lender marketplace where we take that same underwriting of the student that we're sharing with the school, but now we send it out to a group of captive educational lenders, and also personal lenders. And now we let that student get underwritten by a multitude of lenders who will come back instantaneously and give the student a pre-qualified loan offer for their educational needs.
Interesting. I remember you using a term that the Expedia of student loans.
Thank you. Yes, we are Expedia for student loans. And the analogy that I make is just like today, it would seem ridiculous if you're flying to Florida to go on American, Continental, JetBlue, Spirit, and search flight by flight by flight by flight. You just go to Expedia, you type in your itinerary, and it brings you back options. We've created that for student loans in both the degree granting space and the alternative education space, the non-degree granting space.
Wow, that's interesting. And what I love about that is in a lot of cases, you would see a student, they're just put into a box. So unfortunately, if they're not able to gain funding through the federal government, it's kind of like, well, you either come up with a payment plan, or if you have family who left you money, well, see if you can contact someone. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, that's not our student. So being able to give students an additional option where it's like, well, based on who I am, these are the possible lenders that I might be able to apply for.
Exactly. We're all about giving students choice, transparency, and control. So what do I mean by that? Choice. With a traditional loan search, the student will go in Google, find a bunch of student lenders, and apply one by one by one by one. Doesn't really help. And studies show that after the third route, the student is either frustrated or depressed. So we take all the students' information using our underwriting credentials and send it out to upwards of 80 lenders. So now they have the choice with one application, a multitude of lenders. Transparency, what the student gets with Meratas is pre-qualified loan rates sent back to them. So they actually know, if I pick this lender, this is exactly what I'm applying for. Why is that important? That's important because when you go on these loan comparison sites, all you're seeing is ranges. And when you tell a consumer that their quote is between 4 and 14%, that's a big spread. So with Meratas, we actually tell them the exact quote that, should they choose that lender, what they could expect to receive. And then the third one, control, they get to pick. It's their control. We are not a lender. We are a neutral platform. We present with options, and after the choice and the transparency, they control who they choose to select.
That's awesome. Transparency is critical, especially when it comes to student financing. It's like applying for a credit card, and it's like your percentage could be anywhere between 20 and 36. And then you apply, and it's like you're at 35. And it's like, wow. So are there specific schools that you work with? Is it universities, career schools, small schools, medium? Who's your audience?
Sure. So our technology works with all schools, but because of trends in the industry, we found the niche that we're able to service best. And before I tell you the schools that we work with, let me tell you about the trends that we found. A lot of people will say enrollment is down, enrollment is down. We find that enrollment is not down, enrollment has shifted. So what do I mean by that? Enrollment has shifted from the traditional four-year colleges and universities to alternative education, credentialing, micro-credentialing, certificate schools, non-degree programs. And I think what people have realized is that you don't need a four-year degree and $250,000 of debt to get a starting job when you could learn the trade that you're actually interested in, the skill that you're actually interested in 6 to 9 months for a massive fraction. We're talking about $30,000 compared to $250,000, and still come out of that program earning $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in your first year of employment. So because of these trends, those are the schools that we tend to cater towards, the skill schools, the training schools, the vocational schools, because of the trends we see, but also because these schools are underserved by the traditional lending market. In certain cases, Most of them are not eligible for the full panoply of government funding programs. And in other cases, a dirty secret of the industry is a lot of the mainstream student lenders won't work with the alternative education providers.
Yeah.
So even though it's an education and even though it's a student, even though they need a student loan, let's call it the big five, the big six,
Mhm.
they don't service those programs. And then it forces the student to find either the niche lenders, or if you go through a marketplace like ours, we'll match you with the right lender the first time around.
Wow, you know what's interesting about what you just said? There's a lot of people who do not believe that career education is higher education. And it's mind boggling to me. I had a friend who just recently applied for a position, and her entire background is career schools, and there's a lot of career schools who are degree granting. And the provost said, well, my concern is that she's never worked in higher education. And it's like, wow, it's funny how many people do not put career and trade schools under the umbrella of higher education. So what is it? you know,
Yeah.
it's mind-boggling to me. But here's the thing. We know that one of the major reasons why a lot of students do not start school is because of financing. They're interested in certain programs. They've been waiting all of their lives. They have amazing interviews with the admissions teams. And then as soon as we get to financing, it's like, I'm sorry, come again. How much did you say that tuition was? I'm not going to be able to do this. And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, that's where, the train stops. Are there any challenges that you have seen in your experience when you're dealing with schools and when it comes to student financing?
Absolutely. And it's still broken. We're trying to fix it, but
Hmm.
student lending is broken. I'll just say that. Over the past decade, the amount of private student loans has grown by 71%,
Wow.
outpacing auto loans, credit cards, and mortgages in terms of origination.
Hmm.
At the same time, it's one of the most antiquated industries in terms of the mentality and the approach towards the student. So we already made the Expedia example. Let's compare the student loan process to two other common loans, auto and home.
Hmm.
You want to buy a new car, you go to a dealership. They will not let you leave until they've gotten you financing. You want to leave. They won't let you leave until
Uh-huh.
they've arranged for you financing that works with your credit profile and gives you monthly payments that you could afford, right?
Hmm.
Homes. If you want to buy a home, what most people do, they'll go to the bank, they'll get pre-qualified for a mortgage, and
Hmm.
then they'll begin their search. Why do you do that? You do that because you need to know, am I looking at $100,000 homes or am I looking at $1 million homes? Big difference. And getting pre-qualified beforehand gives that buyer the information to go and start their search intelligently.
Hmm.
Now let's think about schooling. Unfortunately, student is really on their own first to find the school they want to attend,
Yeah.
and then after they find the school they want to attend, they'll find out what the price is, and then they'll be sent away by the school to go get financing and come back.
Hmm.
Think about how it could be done differently. What if before the student wanted to take a course, let's say it's a cybersecurity course, we have on our platform, we're not a school, but we have schools that work with us. We have cybersecurity courses that are attached to four-year degree granting institutions. We have cybersecurity courses that are standalone for $20,000 to $30,000. And then we have cybersecurity courses that are partnered with community colleges and give you the same education for $5,000 to $6,000.
Hmm.
Big difference. So for this student, what if instead of taking the course, then figuring out how they could afford it, what if we did it like home mortgages and pre-qualify that student beforehand? Let the student understand what their financial worthiness is, their financial ability, and then let them go about that search. I think it's a big difference between sending them off on their way and telling them to figure it out afterwards versus letting them search more intelligently. And maybe they could afford the $30,000 course, Or maybe they say, you know what, I should take the program that's offered through my local community college at a fraction of it because I'm aware of what my financial situation is. With auto, the example also, too many financial aid officers, all they do with the student is say, these are the 3 lenders we work with. Go apply with this one. Oh, you didn't get approved? We don't know why. Here's the second one we work with. Go apply with this one. You didn't get approved? We don't know why. Here's the third one. By the third one, you've lost that student.
Yep.
These are the things that we're trying to solve by letting a student, I like to say, pre-qualify now, decide later, right? Or flip the order, pre-qualify now and decide later, and give the student enough choices that they don't feel disparaged by going lender after lender after lender. Do it all through one universal application. It's the same information. It just takes a platform approach to say, we'll be the one to gather and distribute rather than making the student do it on their own, one after one after one after one.
Huh. That's interesting. And, there are some schools out there who have strayed away from Title IV funding. So there are, some schools who do not accept financial aid at all. It's a very controversial topic because some schools don't believe in student loans because they don't want students to have that debt after they graduate. But unfortunately, every school out there is not in the position where they can say, well, we're a school who works strictly on fundraising and scholarships. Some schools have to find different financing options for their students. And I love the way you put it because sometimes it's like you just burst a student's bubble. They go through the interview process, they're super excited, and they're like, yes, oh my gosh, I'm finally about to start this career, until you get to financial aid and you're like, okay, I'm going to have to probably push this back 6 to 8 months because I need to work a little bit more to save more money. Being able to have a student say, well, this is exactly what I may pre-qualify for. Now let me go search the schools. And now when I get to financial aid and they're like, hey, the program is 18,000. In that student's mind, they're like, well, I actually pre-qualify for 25. So this may actually happen.
It's all the difference. And you use the word may, I would take that word out and say, this is what I pre-qualify for. It's empowering to the student to say, here's your financial worthiness.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, we will teach every topic in America except for financial education. Right? But so let a student know what their financial worthiness is. Mm-hmm. And then let that student go about that approach knowing this is the type of course I could afford. This is the investment I will make into this course. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that schools that don't want to talk about private loans. I view it this way. Not everyone has a rich uncle who's going to pay you, pay your tuition. So the schools that don't talk about private loans, the ones that literally put their head in the sand and ignore it, mm-hmm. Your student is either going to a payday lender or the local community bank, or they're putting on their credit card, God forbid, right? That's how they're paying it. And then the school is just treating that as a cash payment. It's not a cash payment. That cash came from somewhere.
Yeah.
And most likely it came from a local, perhaps payday style loan if the school won't stay in the middle. So what we do with our platform, again, we're not a lender and the school's not a lender, mm-hmm. but we at least share that data back with the school so they could use it not just as a financial aid tool, but also as an admissions tool, helping the student navigate that financial journey during mm-hmm. the course enrollment and selection process, rather than just at the end and rather than just on the student's shoulders alone.
Interesting. Okay, so who's actually involved in the process? So when you're onboarding a school, who's actually involved? Is it the admissions team? Is it just the finance team? Is it a mixture of everyone? The reason why I asked that question is because in a lot of schools, admissions can go but so far. Most of the time they're only allowed to say, financial aid is offered to those who qualify. When you get with our financial aid team, they'll go more into detail as far as how we make school affordable for you. So who's actually involved in that onboarding process, and explain that to the student?
Sure. So the expression, it takes a village. We see it as both admissions and financial aid, and I'll share with you why. we're more than just a marketplace.
Mhm.
We're an enrollment tool, and the data that we're able to share back to the school, when used properly by the school, will help them fill that enrollment funnel and finish that enrollment cycle. So we share with the school the information about the student that the student is contributing to us. The admissions could use that to help the student make the proper selection on course and program. But then also when it comes to financial aid, you could then match the student with the lenders in our network, or you could have the financial aid office understand why a student may not have been approved to then come up with the right scholarship or gap financing need. It's more of a holistic view rather than the way many schools do it now, which is just sending them away and hoping
Mhm.
they come back.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, that it's definitely a game changer. So, what are your goals for Meritas in the next couple of years? Like, where do you want to take it?
Oh my. So building a company, it's like driving a car. You're driving
You tell
and you see a big obstacle on the road, you drive around it, right? You have a vision of where you want to go, but you for a large part you're running without GPS.
me.
Um, but I'll tell you like the signs that I see that show me where I want to take it.
Mm-hmm.
When we launched purely B2B to C. We would sell to schools and the schools use us with their students. Recently, we created on our website a direct financing uh, page where the students can come to us without having their school involved to get matched with lenders. And in launching that, what we realized was that a lot of students are coming to us for financing that aren't yet sure of where they want to go. So we started doing enrollment coaching and enrollment matching. So now we're using our financing site as a way to help match students who now we know are pre-qualified for finance
Mm-hmm.
with schools that would want that student. So we're playing a little matchmaker, which is fun. And I see that as a huge value add to the school partners that we work with.
Mm-hmm.
And then where I see us going next is using Meratas and expanding on this marketplace approach and offering through our school partners access to their credentialed or certificate programs using the Meratas marketplace as
Mm-hmm.
a platform itself to help distribute our partners' programs.
That is awesome. And it's really exciting because too many times we lose students just because of that one thing, which is financing. And sometimes that's everything to that student. And we have to get to the point where money is not the only factor that's preventing these students from getting to a certain level in their career. So I love what you're doing with Meritas, Darius. I have one more question for you.
Sure.
So, if you had the opportunity to coach your 10-year-old self, what would you say?
I don't know what I would say to myself, but I have 11-year-old children, twins,
Uh huh.
and I know what I
Oh,
tell them. And they come home, we talk about their day at school, and I see their report cards. And what I've found myself saying is a little counter to traditional thinking, but I've realized, and I share this with them respectfully, I don't care about their grades. I don't care if they get the right answers. What I want to see my 10-year-old self and my 11-year-old children do, I want to see how they work through their problems. I want to see them be resilient. I want to see how they get to their answers because I've learned in life there's not one right answer. There really isn't. Maybe in math, and sometimes not in math, but there's not one right answer. So I found myself now that I'm a parent teaching my children about resilience and the thought aptitude because to have the right answer on a piece of paper and not appreciate how you got it, meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
But to build a resiliency, to build a appreciation to analytical thought. I think those are the real strengths that carry into professionalism. So I actually tell my 11-year-old children, I don't care about your grades, I care about your effort.
I love that. And you know what's interesting because that's what this generation is lacking, especially these little babies that's coming up, right? Problem solving is something that a lot of them don't have. And I think sometimes when it comes to the school system, we're basing them having knowledge by a score that's on a sheet of paper. It's funny because my husband always says, maybe I wasn't the college guy because there were only certain classes that I was interested in. But he's super smart. He's a 12-volt installer. He builds police vehicles, right? But some of the things that comes out of his mouth, I'm still trying to process. Like, where did you learn that? And how do you know this information? I always call him Bill Nye the science guy. You remember that from back in the day?
I do.
But the thing is, there's certain people when they go to school, there are certain subjects they're horrible in. But does that discount your level of knowledge? So we have a 3-year-old, and there's certain obstacles that I realize that he adjusts to very quickly. You're trying to train him on something, and he finds a way to get out of it in just one take. And it's like, this kid is really smart. He's really good at problem solving and trying to get his way. So it's like, what are we really focusing on, in this generation that's coming up? Is it just grades so that you can satisfy a school you're trying to get into? Or is it street smarts? Is it really being able to problem solve? And I love that you said that. All right, thank you. Well, what were you about to say?
Yeah, to that point, it's practical over prestige. And too often people value prestige. My position is that practical is just as important. And that goes to like process of thought and even the schools that you choose.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Darius, tell the audience how they can get in contact with you. If they are interested in services, how can they get started?
Sure. Reach out to me directly, Darius at Meratas, or info at Meratas, or hello at Meratas, and you'll get either myself or one of my team members.
All right. Awesome. Well, Darius, it was definitely a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you for joining us, Darius. It was definitely enlightening. I really hope you guys were taking some serious notes. Okay, this is the game changer, is going to help your students and help take your school to a never level. Until then, see you next time.
You. Take care,
everyone. I really hope that you enjoyed that episode. I have been working diligently to bring awareness to career schools. There's so much that they have to offer our students and our community. Every single role within the admissions process is critical, whether you're a part of the admissions team, financial aid, career services, academics, everyone deserves a voice. Admissions is the first point of contact for your school, so you want to ensure that you have a team who exudes confidence, passion, and a clear understanding of effective communication with our potential students. I totally understand the pain of missed class starts, low appointment and enrollment conversions, and this is why I created Next Level Admissions Training by Motivate with K.A.T. This platform is a step-by-step process, and it is going to train your new and tenured advisors in every single step of the enrollment process to ensure that our students are inspired and they're ready and prepared to start class. Admissions is not easy. It can be very challenging, but it's definitely worth it. So if you're ready to take your school to the next level, head on over to lessons.motivatewithkat.com and check out Next Level Admissions.